following show is a paid program.
Hey family, how you doing today? We have the best of the best with us, Dr. Tommy Watson, author, executive coach, speaker, movie producer, from homelessness to doctor. Hello, my friend, how you doing?
Cam, how you doing, my man?
Man, I tell you, I started reading your story. I was crying last night. I said to myself, I've got to talk to Dr. Tommy Watson. Let's
Pleasure
get
to be
started.
on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's go from when you just remember your start and on through the process. Let's tell your story.
Yes, Cam, again, thanks for having me on, brother. So, I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. My mother and father growing up there were drug addicts and shoplifters. So they were heroin addicts. And my siblings and I spent a lot of time, unfortunately, in foster homes, crisis centers, motel rooms, bouncing around from place to place to place. I tried to join a gang when I was in third grade because I had so much emptiness going on inside of me. I remember, by the time I was in second grade, actually, been in a number of foster homes, a number of schools, lived with my grandmother several times, different motel rooms, got kicked out of our house. My teachers didn't believe me. I didn't believe in myself. I remember being in this one very, very difficult situation. My parents would leave us by ourselves. There was 6 of us, and we were never all together as kids growing up. But they would leave us by ourselves for days by ourselves. It was my older sister was in 6th grade. The other one was in 5th grade. I was in 2nd grade. My little brother was in 1st grade. We had a 1-year-old baby sister. And during this time, we would go to school, not necessarily to learn, but to steal food. And we would go steal food. My older sister was in 6th grade, would stay at home with my baby sister. And the other 3 of us, we would go to school, take food, and take it back so my sisters could eat. On the weekends, we would go in grocery stores, steal food, run out of the exit doors just so we can eat. And I remember shortly after that, Cam, we found ourselves at this foster home. And I was so angry because we had been separated from my little baby sister. And I didn't want to be there. I was defiant. I didn't listen to anything that they told me. And there was one particular day when a lady and her son showed up. We were told to go out in the hallway and talk to this young man. And we went out to the hallway. And long story short, this young man who was with this person ended up being my brother. And it was mind blowing because I'm saying, wow, this is the first time I've ever met my oldest brother in a foster home. Shortly after that, in 3rd grade, I was with my aunt, and my goal as a 3rd grader was to join the local Crips with hopes of leading the local Crips as a 3rd grader because I had so much hurt and pain inside of me. Stayed with my aunt for about 2 years. By my 7th grade year, was back with my mother and father, and found ourselves getting kicked out of our house in front of all of my friends in 7th grade. And I remember being so embarrassed and not sure what was going to happen next. We ended up moving into our 7th motel room. It was 9 of us. We stayed my entire 8th grade year of school. And you're talking about 6 adults are all drug addicts. And me and my little brother and little sister left to fend for ourselves. But the thing I kept doing during this time, Cam, was stayed involved in sports. And sports saved me. Ended up getting a scholarship to go to a private suburban Denver high school after my parents went back to prison again. By my senior year, my mother and father had been arrested 121 times, and I was actually homeless, bounced around from place to place to place as an All-American football player. So you're talking about a lot of chaos in my early years. It was unbelievable.
Wow, that is something. Let's see the video real quick of Dr. Tommy Watson.
Tommy Watson wanted more than a life filled with drugs and crime, but he knew it would take something close to a miracle to achieve it. KARE 11's Randy Shaver is here now with Tommy's incredible story. Randy?
Amy, there's a poem that reads, "Dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone tear them away. Hold on, there will be tomorrow. In time, you'll find a way. Well, tonight, an unbelievable story about a former Gopher football player that brings those words to life.
We were not their number one priority at all.
Minnesota graduate Tommy Watson's life reads like a Hollywood screenplay. As a child, he and his family lived in 25 different locations, including 7 motel rooms.
Stay down or you're going to die. By the time you're in 3rd grade, Tommy, it's hard and painful to say, but you have been through a lot. A lot of the foster homes, motel rooms, and crisis centers, and parent incarcerations will certainly take a toll on your emotions. Life will even seem unfair at times. Today's the day you gotta go see Mom. Seeing Mom in shackles will be very difficult and heartbreaking, but you have to be strong. I know you're feeling lots of pressure, but like I said, suck it up, keep going. I need you to look Mom in the eye and tell her everything is okay. Despite the emptiness and abandonment you may be feeling inside. I know, Tommy, it's tough and it doesn't seem fair, but it's your life now. It's what it is. Tommy, through it all, you will discover that there's always been a plan for your life. In the end, Tommy, your story will be used to inspire millions. You'll beat the odds. How do I know all this? Because I am you, Dr. Tommy Watson. You'll beat the parental incarcerations, the foster homes, the crisis centers, the motel rooms. You will persevere. You will show great resilience. I'm very proud of you.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's powerful. You know, as you were showing that, I was thinking about my mother. Can you imagine the person, Cam, who brings you into this world, who's supposed to be your protector, your guidance? You got to go see this person in a prison.
Yes.
And in your elementary years, and you seeing this person who's shackled up, you know, can't connect with you freely, time limit. You're seeing people around her with guns and what have you.
Right.
It's very it was very disturbing as a 3rd grader to have to go see my mother in those conditions, and then to see her have to leave the room, Kim, locked up again, and not knowing when I would ever see her again. You know, you talking about a painful childhood and not sure what tomorrow was going to bring. That was the thing that was, you know, a common theme, if you will, in my childhood. Wasn't sure what tomorrow was going to bring. Yeah.
Absolutely. And let's discuss that. I think we wanted to reiterate childhood homelessness.
Yes.
That's what we in looking at all of this. And your mother, did you ever see your mom come out?
Yeah, it was probably about 3 years later before I would see her again when I was in 5th grade. But
Okay.
again, the uncertainty, one of the things my mother said before she passed away, she said, "You were never in a foster home." I said, "Are you kidding me?" What happened was oftentimes my grandmother would eventually retrieve us from the foster home, and she would place us back into the custody of my mother once she got out of jail. So my mother didn't know the hell that we were going through once she was incarcerated in prison, because again, she was just sent off, and we were everywhere, you know. And, you know, when you start talking about childhood homelessness, Cam, I think I try to tell people there's a difference between living in poverty versus homeless.
Right. And let's
So when I was in
explain that.
So when I was in second grade, we were living in this motel room, and I remember coming back to the motel room one day, Cam, and the owner telling us, well, my dad tried to put the key in the door and it wouldn't work. And the owner he was yelled at my dad saying, get off the property, get off the property. And what had happened was my mother and father hadn't paid the rent on the $30 a night motel room, and they simply changed the lock on the door and kept all of our stuff. I had these priceless cowboy boots that I loved. They kept them all, and we simply had to get back in the car and go right down the street to the next motel room to start life all over again. And again, the motel owner knew that my parents were involved in legal activity, so there was no calling the police. They knew that.
Right.
So we just simply had to take a loss and kind of keep on going. When I was in middle school and was living in my 7th motel room, I remember the school bus cam would go pick up all my friends from the projects who were living with their living in single parent house, getting government assistance. About 100 of them. School bus pick them up, take them to school. There was no stigma because most of the school was coming from the projects. And then me and my little brother were walking in from the motel room, a city outside of Denver. No food. The school didn't have our telephone number, didn't have an address. My friends didn't know where I lived at or anything else. It was 9 of us in one motel room. No government assistance, again, because my parents were involved in criminal activity. We didn't know when we were going to show back up to the motel room and not have a place again. It was totally different than living in poverty. My
Right.
friends who were in poverty, they knew they had an element of consistency when it came to getting government assistance, whether it be food or housing each month. They knew that they were good.
Right.
Our situation was minute by minute. We never knew,
Right. And I think we need to look at that. You're coming from foster homes, motel rooms, homeless as a senior in high school.
Yes. And
Now
you can imagine that,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So in looking at that as a senior in high school, so we're moving along the way. You have been homeless most of the time, okay?
Yeah.
And homelessness we're speaking of is you're living with someone. You don't have a residence of your own. Let's
Right.
discuss that so people can make that
Yes.
understanding.
Absolutely. So there's a law called the McKinney-Vento Act that's in schools, and it says that any kid who's living with in a foster home, a shelter, a motel room, or doubled up with another family is considered homeless. So we have a small number of cases where kids are on the streets, but the vast majority of kids who are considered homeless in schools are the kids who are living in motel rooms, which I live in 7 of them, with doubled up in a lot of family with other people, and then spend a lot of time in crisis centers and also foster homes as well, unfortunately. So again, as you mentioned, much of my childhood was spent bouncing around from place to place to place and dealing with homelessness ongoing. And in fact, Cam, between my 2nd and 3rd grade year of school, I went to 4 different elementary schools in 1 year. Can you imagine that? 4 different elementary schools in 1 year, bouncing around from place to place to place. And it was tough. Again, sometimes when you're talking about my friends who grew up in poverty, they all went to the same schools.
Right.
They went to the same schools: elementary school, middle school, high school. Now, the situations at home weren't ideal. But again, when you're talking about homelessness, you're everywhere. Your life is everywhere. Even when I went off to college, Cam, as an All-American football player, I still had no stability back home in Denver. The University of Minnesota did not have a home address for me there. They actually had to create another system for me to get extra assistance for me at the University of Minnesota, because I had a full ride scholarship. But my school full ride scholarship couldn't cover everything about me because I didn't have health insurance. My friends who were from Sugar Land, Texas, where you guys are from, they had, one of them's father was a doctor, and so they had pretty nice, stable situation they were coming from. But I had no health care. I had no dental care. I didn't know anything about bank accounts. I didn't know anything about anything, And so it was crazy. And then when I went back to Denver, it took me 22 hours to get from Minnesota back to Denver. Oftentimes didn't have anywhere to stay when I got back to Denver. So the bus ride would give me at least 2 days where I knew for sure I had somewhere to sleep at on that Greyhound bus. So even when you start talking about homelessness in college, it still has an impact on those kids who are leaving those situations. So I'm so passionate about, making sure that we take care of our kids who are dealing with that, though. Yes.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that they don't have anywhere to go back to. Let's talk about the fact of you being a senior, and you had mentioned your GPA before when we were talking before this. Let's talk about that.
So, between my junior and senior year of high school, I lived in 5 different locations, and my GPA was a 1.5, Cam, the first semester, and then a 1.7 the next. And I remember having to, but at the time, though, I missed 0 days of school because I still had a vision of going to college and going to the NFL.
Right.
And I knew that my everything was going to be tied to that schoolhouse. So I could not afford to stay at home. I was not late any days. I was at school every day. And in doing so, I barely graduated with the 2.0 that I needed to sustain my scholarship to go play football for the University of Minnesota. But you're talking about I was a private school where the kids were on the weekends when they went skiing, they went to resorts their parents partially owned, so they were millionaires. And I'm coming in from riding 3 city buses to get to the school each morning, and then trying to do the same thing on the way back home. It was a lot of stress. Like I told you before, I never took a moment I didn't talk to anybody about it other than my best friend. I didn't talk to my teachers about it. My teachers suspected something was going on because when they sent letters home, the letters were always coming back. There was no home telephone number they had for me or anything else like that. And during this time, Cam, the movie Boys in the Hood had just come out. And I remember me and my buddy, we went to the movie theater to see Boys in the Hood. And at the end, the star of the movie, Ricky, gets killed. He was going to go off to college. And I remember my friend looking at me saying, "Man, that's your story, T," because both my brothers were involved in gangs at the time. Right. And at that time, I'd almost been killed in a drive-by shooting. So the University of Minnesota, they even got me out of there early, out of Denver, because they didn't want me, once they found out my situation, they didn't want me, being subjected to some of the violence that I was dealing with back in 5 Points in Denver, Colorado. So again, the aspects of it was my life were just so unstable. I had no control over my life. What's in any aspect of it. So it was every day was a constant battle, constant fight, constant, am I going to survive today? So I look back today, I'm so grateful. I mean, I was literally living homeless, living out of this trunk behind me as a senior in high school. You can still see the Greyhound sticker behind me.
Right.
My family put me on a Greyhound bus 30 years ago. Put me on a Greyhound bus, and that trunk has never been back to Denver. Wow. Never been back to Denver. I carried everything I owned from Denver. I never moved back home.
You never moved
So
back
everywhere
home.
I go, that trunk is with me. Yes, never moved back home.
Wow. And looking what you always say is this. I want people to know that our stories, good or bad, make us who we are and what we decide to become.
Yes. You know what, Cam? We have a choice. I didn't know at the time, but we have a choice in terms of what we choose to do with our situations, So all the adversity that I was dealing with was giving me some advantages as well. Wow. Because one thing I always had was I was always a strong and hard worker. So I was a person who was never going to give up. So when I went off to college and, a lot of my teammates, in particular, some of them who were from Sugar Land, couldn't face the academics or the challenges of being away from home. They quit and went back home. I never quit. I kept going. I was hungry because I knew that there was nothing waiting for me and that school was going to be my only option. So sometimes, our hardships can be the very thing that gives us a heart for something great. Our goodbyes can open up the door for something really good. The pain leads to purpose. So that's one of the things I've really discovered from my journey in life. And I try to share that with other people, that sometimes the pain that you may be going through post-COVID may be the thing that's going to give you purpose later on, because there are a lot of people who are out there struggling right now. And maybe this is the time for you to start doing some reflection and start saying, okay, well, what are the lessons that I'm learning from this rejection? What am I getting from this setback? Because every setback gives us feedback, So as I was going through the situations, I was saying to myself, what am I learning from this? What am I learning from this? And Cam, the number one thing for me that kept coming up was, I got to maximize my education. I got to maximize education. So I went on and got 4 college degrees, including my doctorate, because I said I had no safety nets for me back home in Denver. So I kept fighting because I said, every degree that I get is going to equal an opportunity for me to do something with my life. And it gives me a chance to be a role model for those kids out there who are wondering, can I do it? And I'm here to tell them, yes, you can do it. Absolutely.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We'll take a break and we'll be right back on the Cam Hill Show.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Move up at Ron Carter Cadillac. Drive the new 2021 Cadillac XT4 Luxury Collection for only $319 a month. The new 2021 Cadillac XT5 Luxury Collection for only $399 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase either and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months plus bonus cash. Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway.
Shop smarter when you shop Ron Carter. Ron Carter. My prenatal promise is to make sure my baby is safe and healthy, because I know it is possible to acquire syphilis, HIV, or other STDs without knowing it. Getting tested is my very first chance to protect my baby. Doctors are required to give expectant mothers 3 separate tests for syphilis. If you're pregnant, ask your doctor if you're being tested properly for syphilis and other STDs. Congenital syphilis can lead to a miscarriage, stillbirth, or an infant death. Don't risk your baby's health. To find out more, visit myprenatalpromise.com.
Amazing things for you.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, family, we're back with Dr. Tommy Watson. We were just talking, man, your story. I was just reading some of the texts from people and also responses. They are just so intrigued by this story and knowing the 4 degrees. And let's talk about the degrees. And first, how going from a senior, going to the university that you went to, in between, how did you choose that school? You know, because many are coming after you.
Yeah, actually, I actually chose TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. That's where I was headed to at first. So as I was going through the recruiting process, Cam, my mother had gotten out of prison my junior year, and she couldn't find work because she had been in prison so many times, but her heart was in the right place. So she ended up turning to selling drugs to take care of us. In the middle of my senior year of high school, she ended up going back to prison in the middle of my senior year of high school. And that's when the homeless situation turned over for me. And in the meantime, I'm being recruited by all these college coaches, who are trying to come to my home. And at the time, I remember I would have my aunt and my mom's friend posing as my mother because I had a few more days left at the apartment that we were in, so the coaches wouldn't think there's anything was going on. I was literally taking the trips to the colleges on my own. A lot of my teammates were going, visiting with their families. I remember even going to University of Minnesota, Cam. I didn't even have the coat to go up there. I had to borrow somebody's jacket from Denver to go to Minnesota to deal with the cold weather up there for my recruiting trip. But again, there was no parents that they were able to talk to. There was no one there. And I simply made the decision by where I had the most fun at. And I enjoyed TCU, but the coach left TCU after a month after I committed there and went to University of Minnesota. And I followed him there because that's Jim Wacker was the guy I knew. Ended up being a great decision for me. But again, it was so stressful because I'm going to places where I'm looking around at all these other football players coming out of the schools, and these folks are, relatively stable.
Yes.
And matter of fact,
money.
I have letters. Yeah, absolutely. I have letters, Cam, where I show audience when I go speak all the different places that the coaches were sending letters trying to find me. It's like 5 different places they were sending letters, trying to find me during my senior year of high school because they just could not find me. So again, me sitting here today is, nothing but a blessing, and I can't thank God every day for the opportunity. Once I got the chance to go off to University of Minnesota, and again, I left there, Cam. It was supposed to be one of my highlights. I remember getting on the Greyhound bus, Cam, and heading out, leaving from Denver. And again, I grew up in Colorado's first black neighborhood, 5 Points. And I remember as the bus left the terminal and I was heading towards Minnesota, something in my gut, Cam, just told me this will never be your home ever again.
Wow.
And I remember I just started crying and crying on that bus for 22 hours. I got to Minnesota. My head was pounding. And the lady next to me was like, "Are you okay, son?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So one thing I started doing was I learned how to play it off by just smiling.
Yes.
Even though inside I was dying inside, But I got to Minnesota. There was no home address that I could give anyone. The stress was enormous. And, even my second year of college, I had some small bouts of even contemplating suicide because the pain was so great. I remember trying to, and again, I didn't know what was going on at the time, Cam. I would cry myself to sleep. I'm saying, I'm this big, strong football player. Why am I crying myself to sleep at night, But because we may leave somewhere physically, leave the pain physically,
right.
We never leave the pain. It's still with us, Cam,
Right.
That's why I really challenge people to say, whatever your story is, take the lessons you learned from it, embrace it. and utilize it to help other people and heal yourself. Because again, wherever you run to, there you are.
Right.
You can run as far as you want to, but that story, that pain, those experiences are going to always be with you until you deal with them.
What I love about this story and what I love about you, Dr. Tommy Watson, we've talked, briefly before, but I did read your story extensively. I did look at it, and I want people to understand you went knowing you had a 2.0 average. You already knew that, okay?
Yeah.
And this is going up against 4.5, 4.0s, 4. These are, everybody is coming from all over.
Yes.
What made you stay and get 4 degrees?
Yeah, Cam, for many years, man, I thought something was going on with me in school because I had a learning disability when it came to reading, so I couldn't read well.
Yeah.
I remember my classmates would make fun of me and what have you, though.
Yeah.
But one of the things it pushed me to do, Cam, it forced me to become a good reader in terms of comprehension.
Right.
So I was always a hard worker in the classroom, no matter what Fs I got or Ds I got. I was always willing to keep working hard. And for me, Cam, quitting was never an option, though.
Right.
I had those few moments where I thought about suicide, but for the most part, quitting for me was never going to be an option. When I was in that motel room in 8th grade, Cam, there was never a day in that motel room where I said, this is going to be my future. Ever. I was always saying, I don't know what my future is going to be, but this right here is not going to be my future right here. As a matter of fact, when I was living in that motel room, Cam, with all 9 people, when I got a chance, when the coach came in from the inner cities, from the suburbs, and talked to me about commerce from inner cities about going to this private suburban Denver school, while living in that motel room, I went on and won the Colorado Youth Citizenship Award, which is only given to a handful of kids in the state of Colorado. I got on the honor roll. I became the 1-on-1 basketball champ in my school, the wrestling champ in my school. So there's something that's amazing that happens when a person has hope. It wasn't because I was really smart. It wasn't because I was special. It was because I had hope. I had hope that high school was going to open up some doors for me, Cam. It was going to do something for me. So I got to college and I was struggling. Even in my high school years when I was struggling, I kept saying to myself, get the education. It's going to give you an opportunity. The education is going to give you an opportunity. It's going to be your pathway to the NFL, because I want to go to the NFL. And I want all the folks to know out there that there is never, and this is what my teachers told me, this is how they got me to buy an education. My goal was always to go to the NFL. Cam, no one in my neighborhood had education or anything else like that. So the teachers in my school simply told me, they said, Tommy, if you want to go to the NFL, you got to go to college first. Right. There has never, ever been an NFL player who's won the NFL who hasn't gone to college for at least 3 years. So school, college was on my radar screen the entire time. And by the time I finally got hurt in my 4th year of college, I said, wow, it may behoove me to stick around here and get my degree. Right. Once I got that degree, I said, you know what? I don't have any safety nets. I better go back and get a 2nd degree and a 3rd degree and a 4th degree. And my doctorate was really personal for me. I said, I want to achieve this so I can be called Dr. Tommy Watson, not from a standpoint of I'm better than someone else, though, but as in terms of a personal achievement, in terms of a person going from a motel room. One of the greatest honors I had, Cam, I was speaking to some gang members in Omaha, Nebraska, and the gang member said, hey, man, you sound like the homies, but you doctor. I can get with that. I said, you darn right you can. You can do everything I'm doing up here as well. Right. Just because you're in a gang don't mean you can't do it, though. So that's one of the greatest honors that I have in terms of getting that doctorate degree, in terms of what doors it opens up and what type of hope it opens up for other kids and other individuals who may be in tough situations. Even if you're in a situation where you come out of COVID-19, where you've lost jobs, you lost loved ones, you lost income. If you can keep hope alive, but you can thrive.
Absolutely. Let's talk about you being a movie producer. You're a movie producer also. Why so?
Yes, sir. Another thing I did, I wrote my book here, A Face of Courage, which is behind me here. And I always had a dream, Cam, of turning into a story, because I know there are some people who like to read, but there's other people who don't like reading. So one of my challenges was I wanted to convert my my story into a movie, and I did that with a short film called Resilient, and we won 7 awards globally. Now I'm in the process of pitching my TV series to executives in Hollywood and in Atlanta in hopes that it'll be able to be turned into a TV series. Again, just another avenue to inspire people to be great and to also shed light on childhood homelessness. I'm very, very passionate about that, because we have about 2 million kids in our country right now who are dealing with childhood homelessness every day. Absolutely. Every day they're going back. And imagine this. I want to throw this out to your listeners and your viewers. Imagine if you're living in a shelter, okay? you get suspended from school because of behavioral stuff. And most behavioral stuff is driven by family stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Kid comes in grumpy because he's witnessed this right here. When you go to a shelter, they require you to leave the shelter during the daytime. So if you're now suspended from school, where do you go, Cam?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where do you go?
Absolutely.
If you're sick, where do you go?
Yeah.
You don't get days off when you're living in homeless.
Yeah.
You got to every day is a battle.
Mm-hmm.
So I even tell educators, you got to be very, very sensitive to the needs of your students because again, yes, you want kids to come to school and listen and behave correctly, but sometimes suspending them can do more damage than helping them in some situations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's look at the trailer for Resilient.
Well, now how do you reckon we're gonna pay these thousands of dollars for his schooling?
The school offers a scholarship that covers half his tuition.
Boy, you ain't getting no scholarship to college, and you ain't going to school with all them white folks out.
Down in a city's hollow.
This is a very serious offense, an offense using a gun. You're not even old enough to own a gun.
What's
wrong?
You know that part?
Yeah. What? Tommy!
Each other slowly biting.
I don't get leave me alone. They're gonna go down the wrong road looking at you living your life like a
We better run hand in hand, our bodies dancing until the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Resilient.
That's yes. Thanks for sharing that with the audience as well. You know, as you share those pieces, I think back to when my little brother got heavily involved in gangs. Cam, I almost made a decision that almost changed my life. You know, taking up for my little brother, I got involved in a situation where I got roped into a situation where I had a gun and I'm getting ready to pull it on these guys. Thank God I didn't have bullets. Thank God I was smart enough to at least take the bullets out of it, though. Or it could have been a completely different situation because my little brother ended up taking that same gun back to school and attempted to shoot a kid and ended up having to serve some time in juvenile prison behind it. But, you know, again, I thank God over and over again because of some of the dumb things that I could have done. He kept me from them and gave me a second chance, you know. Wow. So, yeah.
Yeah. And doing that, and there are a lot of things that are in the movie that you're talking about, but childhood homelessness was one of the major things that both of us discussed. What people really don't understand that what it means as far, and also foster care.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about foster care. You had been in several foster cares, right?
Absolutely. You know, my first run in foster care, again, I mentioned when I was in second grade, my parents would leave us for days by ourselves. And I remember, Cam, we're at home, not sure my parents are going to come back. And suddenly, you know, there's a knock at the door and it's the sheriffs and the social worker and they're hauling us off. And we're like, where are we going, you know? And shortly after that, we find ourselves in this foster home. Now, keep in mind, it's been my sixth grade sister, my fifth grade sister, I'm second grade. My little brother was in first grade and we had a 1-year-old baby sister. We were basically raising her, Cam. We taught her how to walk. We fed her. We changed her. We did everything. I was 9 years old, dropped my little sister on the floor. We get to this foster home, Cam. My little sister is placed into a different foster home. It killed me. That was one of probably the most difficult things I ever had to deal with. Can you imagine being separated from like that from one of your siblings or someone you love so dearly, and you don't have any control over it? Mm-hmm. So the anger I had in foster home was unbelievable towards the foster parent. And it wasn't because she was a bad person or anything, though. It was because I went through so much in that time. And then I got a chance to meet my older brother by pure coincidence in a foster home who was adopted by another lady who just happened to be a friend of the foster parent who I was with. It was mind-blowing, though, you know. And can you imagine going to a school, you were in second grade in a foster home, and you show up there with the person who's your guardian, and people are asking you, is that your mom? And the foster parent doesn't know what to say. I don't know what to say, you know, don't know how to respond to it. It's an awkward situation, awkward dance, you know. Yes. And then, you know, having to deal with situations where they do family events. It's their family. We're the foster kids. It's really not our family. So we're at a family event, but we're not really the family. You know, we're kind of like the stepchild who's kind of just showing up at the party, you know. So
Right.
Being in foster care can be a very, very difficult thing for a lot of young people. There are some foster parents who do an excellent job of making sure the kids feel a part of the family, feel welcome. But in many situations, it's very difficult because you're bringing in kids who've been through a lot of trauma before they reach your doorstep. And you got to realize that, the personal attacks you may be getting, the fines you may be getting, is not because of you, but it's because of years of pain,
Right.
that kids go through. Yeah.
Right. The other thing too is that I want people to know with foster care, with you having siblings, that means that foster care parent, if they're keeping you together, and it's 6 of you, that means 6 children have to come into that home.
Right,
you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? Even though
Absolutely.
I know they get assistance and things like that, you still have 6 different personalities coming in.
Absolutely.
We want to
Absolutely.
know that that is a real big thing for, I'll say it, African Americans. We've got to,
Absolutely.
help if we can.
Absolutely. And thank God that my grandmother was one of, and my aunt as well, my aunt Mildred and my grandmother Helen, they were people who came and rescued us from the foster home.
Right.
Because I think sometimes, I was amazed. I was talking to a young lady in Mississippi, and she was talking about the high number of Black kids in Mississippi in foster home. I said, wow,
Right. It's a lot of it.
that's the
Here,
case?
too.
Because there's so many Black kids where the families are still intact and near each other. I said, wow, how does that happen though? I really hope that we can have more of our family members step up to the plate and really help out in some of those situations with those kids who are being placed. Because again, what happens is in many situations, foster parents not going to take in 6 kids. They don't have the capacity to take in 6 kids. They're going to take in 2. They're going to take in 3. They're going to take in 4. It was 4 of us. That was the max that they got for us. Other situations, when you're a teenager, it's much more difficult for you to find a foster home because now you're coming with a lot more baggage that a lot of people don't necessarily want. So the dynamics of dealing with the foster care system, even in adoption, becomes very, very tricky for a lot of kids who are in those situations if we don't have family members who are willing to step up to the plate like my Aunt Mildred did. She sacrificed so much of her life to bring me and my 3 siblings in, and with her 3 kids as well. So it's a sacrifice, but it's something that's needed in some situations for sure.
Wow, that is something. And I'm glad you're putting a light on it too. The other thing too is that in foster care, this is the other thing, once you become 18, you're out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And imagine now being out of a situation where you've grown up and you've probably been in multiple foster homes, so you don't really have a stable home, okay? You don't have a stable connection with some of the adults, and now you're cut off from government assistance and you're just thrown out to the world and to say, go survive.
Right.
If I became president today, the first law that I would change is I would give each of those kids who are in foster care or dealing with homelessness at least a 4 years of eligibility to get an education on some institution, to give them some stability up until they're 23 years old, because they need that time to get stable. I mean, it took me every bit of 5 years at the University of Minnesota to get some stability to learn about bank accounts. Again, think about that, Cam. I didn't know how to open a bank account. I didn't know what a bank account was because my parents put the money underneath the mattress.
Right.
My mom carried the money in her bra.
Right.
Cam, when we ironed clothes on the floor and in the bed. There was no ironing boards.
Right.
So there was so much I had to learn. I didn't know how to cook or anything. So there's so many just basic skills that you think that my kids have today, that a lot of those kids in those situations don't necessarily have. And I'm not saying all of them in foster care have those situations, but many of them do. And then we're simply cutting them off at the age of 18. Age 18 is not the time to cut a young person off who's been through that type of challenge and trauma and try to throw them out to the world and say, hey, go survive now. It's not fair on those young people.
I think we need to also bring up, and you've brought a lot, that's why I said, to the table, and I thank you for this, because it has not been spoken about extensively at all that's needed. That the fact that even during this time, one main thing about going to school is thinking, and if you can't eat and you're hungry, you haven't bathed, you're out there. So how can you concentrate?
Yeah. Cam, when I was in that motel room in 8th grade, I would probably go weeks without taking a bath.
Right.
Weeks.
Right.
And keep in mind, we would walk around on the motel room floor in our socks. So the motel room rug was filthy. So my socks were filthy.
Right.
We were often talked about at school, made fun of because we were musty and our clothes weren't clean or anything else though. And it was tough. I even had teachers talking about me, laughing at me in gym class, making jokes about the way I smelled and everything else. And it was painful. It was really painful. But my outlet, Cam, was sports. Thank God for sports.
Yeah.
Sports became my saving grace because I knew, Cam, if I could excel in the area of sports, on the basketball court, it wasn't about what I had or didn't have off the court. It was about my skill set on the court.
Absolutely.
So I mastered the game of basketball and became a really good basketball player and a really good football player, so that my game on the court or the field was at the same place, same par as everyone else. It wasn't about what I was lacking or did have off the court, off the field. But that's a huge challenge though when you're going places and you don't have clothing. I remember, Cam, my senior year of high school, I was one of the all-city top basketball players in the state, and my shoes, I had a big hole in my shoe.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even find nobody to who was willing to even buy me a pair of shoes. And again, I was asking, like you said before, we talked about this before, sometimes people get hospitality fatigue when they're taking care of you so much. I got to a place where I was tired of asking for help, and I just didn't want to keep asking for help. So I endured. I had my toe hung out my shoe and I scored 25 points and I just kind of kept going. But it was embarrassing. It was painful. All those things that come into play with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's do this. We'll take a break and we'll be right back on the Cam Hill Show.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
I'm a part of the prenatal care club now, taking all my STD tests.
Did you know your doctor's required by law to test you 3 times for syphilis and HIV?
Yes, my husband and I are making sure I get all 3 tests.
Good. Testing is the key to preventing congenital syphilis.
And good prenatal care is your first labor of love.
Glad to hear your husband is so involved.
Thank you. Yes, taking all my STD tests for syphilis is important to both of us. My prenatal promise is to prevent a stillbirth or miscarriage. To find out more, visit myprenatalpromise.com.
Amazing things for you.
Move up at Ron Carter Cadillac with the new 2021 XT6 Luxury Collection with standard third-row seating for just $459 a month for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months plus $1,750 bonus cash. At Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway. Test drive the new 2021 Escalade today at Ron Carter Cadillac.
Shop smarter when you shop Ron Carter. RonCarterCadillac.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, family, we are back with Dr. Tommy Watson. People didn't know this, but I want to just bring up, you are a school principal, and I just want to ask this one question about that. As a principal, a teacher, people that are in the world, what should we be looking out for, and what can we do when we
that's
see
a great question.
child is, the children that are homeless, have homelessness?
Actually, I think one of the first things you have to do, I even challenge my staff to do, is build quality relationships with your students. Mm-hmm. Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions about how they dress. Don't make assumptions about how they speak, how they don't speak, with the color of their skin or anything else, though. Build relationships with all kids. Get to know them. Find out about them. And then once you find out about them, don't judge their situation. Find out what their hook is. Again, the folks in my high school, Cam, they found out that my hook was sports. Mm-hmm. So no one told me that, hey, you know what? You might not go to the NFL. You better have a plan B. Your chance of something. They said, hey, great, Tom, you want to go to the NFL? Great. You got to go to college first. So I bought in academically to everything they were talking about because they didn't kill my dream. We can't kill the dreams of our kids. Whatever it is our kids want to do, let them dream. Let them dream. Expose them to opportunities. So, if you have a kid who wants to play sports, great. Start with the sports aspect. And then expose them to what it takes to be a commentator. Expose them what it takes to be, there's all these, the owner of the team. There's all these different fields that you can introduce them to that surrounds the game of sports. So whatever it is a kid wants to do, don't kill their dream because that's their hook. The hook is the one thing that you get buy-in from your kids on, and it gives you a chance to keep them engaged. And you want our kids to have goals, and we want them to have hope more than anything. Because again, when our kids have hope, we know that they can succeed and do anything despite the challenges that they're coming from. When they can believe that there's a brighter future out there for them, Cam, they can do it.
They can do
They
it.
can do it. In particular, our kids, they can do it. We have a lot of brilliant kids out there. Yeah,
we really do.
They can do it.
We really
Yeah.
do. And by you being a school principal, how do we have make children to buy in or have them or convince them to buy in to school, to academics, to going, from being a senior on through college? What do we need to do?
Absolutely. Well, again, I think everything starts, Cam, with that hook. You got to find out what the kids' interests, goals, dreams are, and begin to tie the academics into what those things are. For example, if you have a kid who wants to be a doctor or lawyer, start talking about some of the classes they need to take in college, and then high school, and then middle school, and elementary school, and talk about some of the skill sets they're going to need. You got to be able to be a communicator. You got to be able to read. You got to be able to write. So kids, it begin to make more sense to kids at that point in time. Also, Kim, this is a very important piece there. You got to introduce them to other people who are doing what it is that they want to be doing. Right. One of my classmates, I played football with the University of Minnesota, was from he went to Willow Ridge High School there in Sugar Land, Texas, and he talked about one of the things his teachers used to do. She used to bring in someone from the community every Friday and introduce the students to different careers. We got to go back to doing some of those things. We got to take a break from the academics sometimes and introduce and make sure our kids are getting what they need emotionally, behaviorally, and socially. Because when we cover those areas, Cam, our kids will buy into the academics. Again, if I'm coming to your school, Cam, and I'm not eating, you can tell me about 3 times 3 is 9 all you want. I'm not listening.
Right.
I'm hungry.
Right.
I'm hungry.
Right.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah. Or if I've been up all night because my dad has been beat up on my mom,
yes,
I got some other stuff. I need to talk to one of your school counselors. I need some other stuff going on. Or if the drive-by shooting that took place in my house it took place the night before, I got to talk to someone about that. If my door's been kicked in because of a drug deal going bad, we got to meet our kids emotionally, socially, and behaviorally where they are before we start going to the academics. And then they'll buy into those things, Cam. When they know that it's that saying that says, that no one cares how much you care until they know, what does it say? No one really cares how much you, I can't remember. Whatever the quote is, you need to care first.
Yes.
You got to show care first. I messed that one up though, but you got to care first before kids know you buy into them, right?
No worries. Yeah. But you're right about that. You absolutely right about the kids in themselves, because they're going to school hungry, can't concentrate. They've gone through stuff right before, many have.
Yeah. And Kim, even when I was at the private suburban Denver high school, the rich kids, they went through stuff. I mean, their parents gave them a credit card and told them to make it work while they went to Europe for 2 months.
Right.
So now you have a young person who's trying to figure out, how to live life. Yeah, you got millions, but you don't have the connection between your parents as well. So all of our kids need to know and make that connection emotionally, socially, and behaviorally, and then get them to buy into academics, and not, again, we can't make assumptions about kids based upon the backgrounds, whether it be from affluent areas or homeless areas. Build the connections with the kids, whether it be black, white, male, female, build the connections with them. Find out what it is they want to do. Expose them to opportunities. I had a guy on my podcast the other day who grew up in the inner cities of West Chicago, and he said one of the things he did, Cam, to keep himself sane, he would leave the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Walk downtown Chicago to get himself exposed to something different. So we got to expose our kids to other things. You got to expose them to other things. That's one of the reasons I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted my kids to see more African Americans who were doing well, and not just the couple of us who were doing well in Minnesota. So that exposure is absolutely critical in everything we're doing.
Absolutely. I love that. What have you learned along the way?
Wow. You know what? I think I've learned that every obstacle opens up a door for opportunity. Mm-hmm. I learned that, Cam, that even in our darkest days, if you're still here listening to the sound of my voice, I wanted to give you this right here. You have survived 100% of your most challenging times. Mm-hmm. If you are here today listening to my voice, you have survived 100% of your most challenging times. So what you have to do now is start saying, okay, what are the lessons I've learned from it? How do I take those lessons and turn it into what God has put me on this earth to do in terms of my purpose? What is my purpose around my lessons and my connections and my story? So everything that you've gone through in life, there's some purpose with it. Even though it can be as painful as, as anyone has endured, there's still some purpose there behind it. So again, find out your purpose, find out the lessons that need to be learned from it, and find out who needs to hear your message, because there's someone out there right now who needs to hear your message. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's an audience out there for you. Share that message. Yes.
Absolutely. There is an audience. What would you like to leave with the viewers?
Well, I want to leave that message of hope, because you've heard my story of challenging times and everything else. The acronym that I like using for hope is have only positive expectations. So no matter what situation you're facing right now, you have to believe in the end you're going to win. You have to see yourself there before you ever even get there. You have to be it and then do it, and then you have it. So whatever it is you're striving for in life, be it mentally first, do the work, and then you'll have it later. But don't give up hope no matter what you do, though. But hope is one of the most powerful tools in our society. So keep hope alive, and thrive.
Absolutely. I love that. How do people get your books? Because you have A Face of Courage, and the other one is The Resilience of Champions, and then the movie.
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. So if you're interested in any of my books, you can go to tawatson.com, tawatson.com, or you can find the books on Amazon or anywhere else that sells books. Face of Courage is the one about my personal story. Resilience of Champions is based upon the lessons that I've learned growing up through that story. And again, the movie is called Resilient Below Poverty, which is the TV series that I'm pitching towards Hollywood now. The name may change once we get further down the line or what have you, though. But the premise of childhood homelessness will still be the focal point of the TV series as well. So again, would love for you guys to follow me on social media. I'm out there, easy to find. Again, tawatson.com. Share with me your messages, or you got questions, reach out to me, though. So I look forward to connecting with you. And again, Cam, I can't thank you enough for having me on your show and allowing me to expose the audience to my thoughts and story as well.
Absolutely. You have a podcast. When is it?
Yes, my podcast airs every Monday and Wednesday called Resilient Stories. We just had Snoop Dogg's mom on there.
Right.
The day before yesterday, she talked about, the challenges that come along with, raising a superstar like him. Recently I did one with DC Glenn, Cecil Glenn from Tag Team. They have the #1 commercial in America from Geico. And, he tells an interesting story. He just happens to be from my hometown of Denver as well. So tune in, go to Resilient Stories podcast. You can hear some amazing stories of individuals, who've overcome obstacles. We've all had obstacles in our lives, Cam, and there's a lot that people can learn from our stories.
Absolutely. He has a great podcast. I follow it. It's excellent. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep motivating people. Keep telling your story, because you, my friend, are a true testimony of what great is. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, brother.
Talk
Absolutely.
To you soon.
Appreciate you having me on.
12:31, 30 Central Standard Time, The Cam Hill Show. See you then. Bye.